All right, awesome. All right, so obviously you guys know this week we're just gonna discuss sexual harassment sections we've been reading about. So I'll just get going. Let's see. What's something that you guys that can help me understand the background of sexual harassment law just before we get started? Just the basic that you guys know about.
From what I gathered from it, originally discrimination of sex, sexual harassment wasn't part of that. And it kind of morphed. I think it was said a court in Arizona was one of the first ones to start recognizing like termination of employees if they don't comply with a manager that's harassing them or stuff like that. So it kind of, in the 1970s, it said it morphed into the sex discrimination law becoming more of a sexual harassment law as well, and protecting people from sexual harassment at work, which was different from what the original law was, which was just discriminating between whether you're a male or a female.
Yeah, absolutely. To go along with that, I was a little surprised on how long it's taken. Like Brazil said in 2001, they addressed the issue of sexual harassment at the federal level. You'd think that, it's not that long ago if you think about it. And like, that is when they did the first sexual harassment law state. So it's not that long ago.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, seems like it'd go back a lot farther than that, but
yeah,
I think one key thing is that there's basically two potential forms of sexual harassment. You either have quid pro quo, or the hostile work environment.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually thought there'd be a more variety of things, but as I read, I was like, there's only two, but then obviously as you read more into them, you understood it more. But so based on the Martinez story, does her situation constitute sexual harassment?
I'd say yes, especially if he stuck his hand in her shirt that day, like he was saying.
Yeah.
She was saying,
yeah,
that's pretty clear.
Yeah. Yeah, and then to even go before that, like elevator brushing up against. If you keep doing that, you kind of get there, but then definitely the hand down the shirt. That's just
I think it's definitely a case that needs to be looked into and investigated. Obviously, it's the whole innocent until proven guilty thing. We're only hearing like her side of the story in the case, but I definitely think there's grounds for an investigation to take place with what he said.
Yeah, absolutely.
My main concern is like you question hostile work environment. Like does she feel uncomfortable there? Does it make her employment miserable? Is she considering other options? Well, she's talking about how she's wanting a transfer. She's trying to get out of there. She doesn't feel comfortable there. That's pretty clear cut. If someone's trying to leave employment and debating like even quitting to escape it, that's a pretty clear sign of red flag for harassment.
yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. It takes a lot for someone to want to leave their job.
yeah.
Or usually, I guess it depends on the situation, but so it must be pretty bad for her to want to get transferred.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Is the quid pro quo or hostile work environment, there is not enough information here to say it is quid pro quo, but she mentions that she is afraid of being fired, which may imply that there's a quid pro quo. Based on the story she told, is there a hostile work environment?
Yeah, it's definitely a hostile work environment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that DeCoste got accurate advice when she called the counseling office?
I do. I think so.
Wait, so what was the question?
So just said from the reading, do you think that Mexico State got accurate advice when she called the council's office?
I think it's a he.
Yeah, he's the manager.
The manager.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
When
I would say
they said that he needed to call the EEO or the employment place.
EEOC.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that
because
they didn't say he needed to call the EEOC. They said he needed to call the Lone
EEO.
Star EEO, which is
Yeah.
the company. Which, as a company lawyer, I would definitely say they're going to tell him, because the company lawyer thinks we could get sued for this, and we're going to
yeah,
investigate and do whatever to make sure we don't get sued. So their advice is going to be, hey, you report everything every time, no matter what. Is he legally obligated, like they said? I don't think that's necessarily true.
Mhm.
But it does put him in a bad spot if he maybe doesn't, if he ever gets called to stand. But he's not legally obligated.
No,
They can't prosecute him for not reporting it.
no.
it said in the other reading about if the under the section where it talked about harassment liability, and that organizations with over 15 or more
Right.
employees,
Right. The organization can be liable.
and then in this situation where he's probably more of a coworker because he's not her direct supervisor, he still could be held liable if they find out he knew and he didn't do anything.
He could be liable for the company. They could terminate him based on it, but he can't be criminally charged.
No.
So he's not legally obligated to report it.
Yeah, he would just have to go into court, like they were talking about. The lady was telling him, like on the phone,
Right.
that he would have to appear in court and he'd be under oath.
And he could be a big reason why the company gets sued. Like why
Yeah.
the company loses the lawsuit is if he doesn't report it.
Yeah.
But he himself
No.
is protected.
Yeah, it's just more. It's more about the company,
But he definitely should report it.
yeah. Yeah, he should have. That's good. Okay. How would you evaluate Jack's options at this point? What do you think he should do? Yeah.
I think he took the right step by calling her in and just being honest and upfront with her, promising her that he wasn't going to do anything without talking to her about it first. So I think that's good, just to get her on the same page, maybe get a better feel, let her think about things, and communicate with her of how she feels she needs to move forward. If I were him, I would want to take more of like the back seat and just be like, hey, I know what's going on now. I'm here to help you. I'll support you if you want to take care of this. But if I'm him and ultimately she doesn't want me to do anything, I don't think I would. It's got to be her that wants it done.
Yeah. Well,
I don't agree with you. I think so. I work in a municipal court and I'm a probation officer, so I deal with victims all day long. And most of the time, they're not in a position where they can report it. Like for her, she's so scared of getting fired. The right thing to do might be report it to protect her. Like, what if this guy loses his cool one day because she won't sexually do anything, and then he just like totally comes on and takes advantage of her? Like, the whole point is to avoid that from getting to that point. Well, the right thing to do is to stop it in its tracks now, even if there might be a negative repercussion, if it can protect her. Doing it the right way and being careful about it is the right way to go. But even if she says, hey, I really don't think that I want you to report this, I think he still needs to.
Yeah, I guess with my point of that is it's involving more than her job. Like if she's really that concerned about her husband and it could ruin a marriage or something like that over it, I think that would be a huge deal for me that I wouldn't want to step into that place. And also if she says, hey, let me try to get a transfer in a week, and if she can get to a different workplace and not have it reported and not ruin her marriage, I could just see how that could be a benefit too. But I see your side as well.
He also could end up, he won't be held liable, but he also could, lose his job if the company ends up finding out that he knew, and then they're sued, and he didn't tell him. He could lose his job and get fired.
yeah. I do like how just at the end he said, I can promise you, I'll give you my word, I won't do anything or say anything without talking to you first. I think like he at least owes her that to at least let her know, even if he's going to do something.
Yeah, I agree. You should tell her. Keep like kind of work with her.
Yeah. Yeah. Even if he is going to do it, but just overall. So what about everyone? So does everyone? Sam?
I think Sam can't hear us. He sent a he's
Oh.
chatting on the side saying he can't hear us and he's trying to work it.
Oh.
Not working.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. And then, all right, cool. So the students report them. So it says for students who are willing to report, ask you guys to explain to you if you were going to explain to Julia Martinez about your decision, are you willing to get fired over it?
Sorry to interrupt. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Yep.
Sweet.
Can you hear us?
Your sound just cut out.
Can you hear us or no?
Okay, there it is.
Cool.
Awesome. I'll read the question again. So, like, just overall, if you guys are going to explain, are you guys willing to, if you were in the situation, would you be willing to get fired over it?
Which one was this over again?
Just over the Julia Martinez.
Oh, okay.
If it ultimately took me getting fired to try to do the right thing and protect someone who I feel like is a victim of sexual harassment, and that's what it came down to, so be it. If it's the right thing to do, I would hope I don't get fired, and hopefully you can resolve it before then. But I still think, the downside, like, what if you don't say anything and then it gets really bad? And could you live with that type of thing,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I am
Yeah.
as well.
I really wouldn't want to work for a company that would fire me for doing the right thing.
No, you wouldn't want to be there. I know I wouldn't. Does filing a harassment claim prevent her from ever being fired?
No.
No.
Yeah. I don't
Especially
think
if the company's going to be downsizing soon, they could find a reason to fire her if they wanted to. I mean, it wouldn't be very hard.
Yeah. There's also another question is because there's other stuff her boss could fire her from if it wasn't
Oh, yeah.
that. So I mean, there's
Just
just
have to, as long as he could prove it wasn't as a reasonable thing because of the reporting. If it was a legitimate reason to fire her,
yeah. Do you guys think that she really has any proof that of the harassment?
no, not at this point.
No.
Yeah. Not anything that's would be sound in court, at least.
Yeah.
Unless there's surveillance, but I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't really mention that.
Yeah. Well, maybe like, about the elevator incidents, maybe there is in the office, but there's not in the elevator. So that way she couldn't prove it. That's
Right.
so. Okay. So do any of you guys think that Jack should do nothing?
No.
I don't think he should do nothing. I know my stance earlier was to let her kind of take the lead, and I'm still with that. I think that he should talk to her and urge her and help her and be a support to that. And I think it would be better if she took the lead on it and like overcame it. But
That's
I
true.
guess ultimately, if she never did, and it was still going on, then he probably should. I just think initially he should try to work with her and get her to like talk to her husband about it herself and call herself and start the case.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
if he needs to get involved, he can be there to support. But like just from overhearing a conversation, I don't know. It's just tough for him to be the one that initiates all of that. Maybe try to urge her to do it.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it is her problem, so to speak. And if she's not willing to take the precautions to actually go forward and try to resolve it somewhat herself, you're not always going to be there to like help her out and walk her through it. So I agree that she needs to be the one to at least start the initiation. But you can always be there for support and back her
So
up.
to counter that, though, I've had experiences where we had a guy who I had to report who was a pretty high position, like
Uh-huh.
oversaw an entire sheriff's department, maybe. And he was the one who was kind of doing the harassment. And so to report him was a big deal. And the individual that I talked to didn't want to come forward. But it turned out when we actually kind of did report it, that there were actually like 5 or 6 different people that he'd been harassing. And so I know it's like, it's her call, it's her thing, but she might not be the only victim. Like it might be a bigger problem than just this one girl.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and even to go on, like the next question is, does Jack owe any ethical duty to other possible victims of the perpetrator? So,
Yeah,
I'd say
I
yes.
think he does.
Yeah.
yeah.
That's why even if she contests, like, I don't want you to report it, it's going to ruin everything. Like, I still think he has to, like, as a moral code, because you just don't understand if there's even a chance, like, you have to do the investigation, and hopefully it shows nothing, but it's not going to. The right thing to do is to do the investigation.
Yeah, because there could be a whole lot more people that
Mhm.
are dealing with it
Yeah.
in the same
And like
person.
someone had mentioned before, I can't remember who, I feel like generally speaking, companies don't want employees like that working for them.
Right?
You know, no company wants to have someone who's sexually harassing people. So if it is happening, I think anyone who notices it should bring it up, but also in the correct context and say, hey, I overheard this. I didn't necessarily see it or experience it, but just to make you aware in case there are other people coming forward. I've, overheard instances in the offices where I feel like it may have been inappropriate.
Yeah. Absolutely. So if you guys were going to report to the EEO office, what exactly would you report to them?
I think I just kind of like Coyote said, hey, I overheard a conversation. I don't know what merit it has, but I feel like it needs to be checked out by people who are trained to look into this.
Yeah. And I feel like that's the best because, like I said, he only heard a phone call. He didn't hear what the other side was saying. He doesn't know everything, and he doesn't know both sides of the story. So that's perfect.
Right.
Okay. Is there anything else you guys want to add to that story, that reading?
I don't think so.
I think we covered most of it.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So now part 3 is sexual harassment policy and procedures. Now we will consider what to include in a company's sexual harassment policy. So it says assign each of your team members a role. So I'll just read it. There's 4 roles. So potential victim of harassment, accused harasser, bystander, and legal counsel. So who would like to do what? And we'll double up on one of them.
Yeah, I don't really have a preference. So whatever.
Okay. All right.
Bystander.
I'll do legal counsel.
Okay.
I could be the accused harasser, I guess.
Okay. Sam, you're potential victim of harassment?
Yep.
Okay.
Take that one.
All right. Okay. Okay, so given your assigned role, identify the most important things you want to see in the new policy and procedure that your organization is formulating to govern sexual harassment issues. Be prepared to defend your choices as well as other people may not agree with them. So just think about it and then I'll ask you what you came up with.
Okay.
7 ready?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, how have the different roles influenced your approach to to appropriate policies and procedures, how would the balance, or how would you balance these concerns in a policy? Does that make any sense?
Kind of.
Okay, I'll read it one more time.
Do you want to know like what we came up with as our policy ideas first, or?
Yes. Let's see, are we supposed to type this up or what?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
It's recorded. So watch it.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
I think for me, from legal counsel perspective, I'd like the policy to say that it is required for an employee to report anything they overhear, anything they see, or they could be terminated, so that they are encouraged to make sure they report anything that happens. And then I will also include that if someone's investigated for sexual harassment, that they could be suspended until, like, with pay or whatever, until something's figured out, just to make sure that the company does its due diligence in assessing a situation before they let anything continue to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I think as an accused harasser, I would like to see, I guess it kind of goes along with his, but if I am being accused, that I don't go without a job while an investigation goes on until a final, like, or at least without pay. I need to be protected in that manner, that just because accusations are made against me, I'm not going to be punished for those until it's proven that I actually did something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And as a potential victim of sexual harassment, I would want to know a specific channel that I could go through in a proper way to report everything and just make sure that everything remains anonymous. I know a lot of times that can stop people from wanting to come forward, just embarrassment.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of people, I mean, they might not feel safe.
Right, yeah.
And so they want to be, yeah, like I said, you want to be protected. And so.
Yep.
And as a bystander, I would want like a list of what would be viewed as sexual harassment in a court setting, and like so it can help bystanders recognize sexual harassment in the workplace. So maybe like a list of things that would qualify as sexual harassment.
Mm-hmm. Well, to go along with that, I think a lot of people don't necessarily know that they're being sexual harassed. They don't understand like how severe it is and stuff like that. They think, oh yeah, they're just brushing up against me and stuff like that. So I think that people need to understand the different levels.
Yeah, and I think especially with just comments made like in passing in the office, I know that can oftentimes be kind of brushed under the rug as, oh, they're just playing, like don't read so much into it. But it really can be offensive to a lot of people and taken as sexual harassment.
Yeah.
Well, and like with that, I mean, if you tell someone about, oh yeah, they said this to me in the hall, someone's gonna go, oh, they're just joking, stuff like that. So I don't know. There's a lot that.
Yeah, I think say, oh, you know how Jeff is. Like, don't worry about it. He's like that to everybody. It's like, well, it's just because he sexually harasses everyone in the office doesn't mean that it's okay.
Yeah.
Well, from my own personal experience, I've heard at work, someone will say, oh, they're just a creepy old man or something like that. And so they give them a reason.
Like a free pass. Like, he'll never do anything. He's just talking words.
Yeah, he's harmless.
Yeah.
All right. Is there anything else anybody like to add on that part?
I don't think so.
Okay, awesome. So I'm just gonna, it's a Lone Star wrap up. I'm gonna tell you exactly what happened in the case. So when Jack called corporate counsel, he forgot about caller ID. The lawyer used the information he gave to figure out the people he was talking about. She contacted the Lone Star EEO, which launched a formal investigation. The EEO tried hard to get Martinez to cooperate. French denied all charges, claiming that Martinez has made up the whole story to protect herself from pending layoffs. Jack was asked for evidence, but he didn't give any. Julia Martinez's husband found out what was going on, beat up Julia, and forced her to quit. French survived the investigation with only a bruised reputation. He blamed everything on Jack for calling corporate counsel. So much animosity between Jack and French that Jack left the company after 3 months. So what was Lone Star's sexual harassment policy? If Lone Star had one, did Jack know anything about it? What policy, procedures, or training might have improved the situation Jack found himself in? What would the policies that we created as a group help Jack? Could clear policies and procedures help avoid any of the final consequences in this case?
I think what we had talked about covered a lot of what could have helped him in that situation, because he didn't even know. He sat there and debated what he should do. He didn't really know. So that shows that they didn't really have a solid policy in place to kind of that would explain what they do in that situation and who they could go to. Like, I can't remember who mentioned it, and be like, have someone they can go to where everything's anonymous, and they can report any issues. I think that would have helped a lot.
I think they have a policy. I don't think that anyone really knew what it was. It seems like at least
Yeah.
Jack didn't. And I bet the policy was just kind of what they said: report anything you hear. So I'm not sure it really would have changed anything. And that's kind of the downside of these sexual harassment cases, is unless you have proof, it's really hard to find the person guilty, unless something happens that you can kind of document somehow. Like if she had been keeping a journal and like wrote every day something happened, like wrote what happened, that would be pretty substantial to say, look, I have dates, I have times, I have situations. Me as a person, I think, if I was clever and wanted to get him in trouble, I would have just recorded on my phone, walked in there every time, and if he made a sexual comment, had it recorded. You kind of build your case. But she wasn't expecting to do that, so I don't know.
Do you think that should be something companies need to start enforcing or looking into, is setting up security cameras or some type of system, so that way if there is some accusation, they can go back and, instead of just having hearsay and going back and forth between he said, she said, they actually have some type of proof or evidence?
Well, the only problem I can see
It
with
might work in
cameras.
some situations, but I think a lot of these guys wouldn't do that kind of stuff if they knew they were on camera or they could hear what was going on.
Right. It could be almost like, and I don't know how that can infringe on privacy laws and certain things like that, but I feel like it might help avoid things, or cameras without audio. I know a lot of places have.
Theoretically, yeah, it'd be great. But one of the issues you get there too is like, how do you record it? How far back do you keep it, like archiving wise? And is it a security issue to keep all this record of stuff? And like, I work in the police department, and even body cameras, we're having this big issue right now of like, how long do the officers have to keep the records for? Because it's a ton of money financially to record everything and keep it locked away forever.
Right. Yeah.
When a case happens. So as just a random company to record every office and everything, like, it's a huge financial burden. I just don't know if that's feasible. Ideally, great. It'd be great. Big brother watching over your shoulder.
Yeah, that's just something I bring up there. Do you think companies do have some type of obligation that if someone is going to file that claim, that the company can, part of their due diligence, have a way to where they can actually figure it out? Besides, again, comes back down to, what's this guy's reputation?
Right.
Okay, he is a creeper, or he's not, or whatever. So now it really is just a he said, she said, and it's almost like a gut test.
Maybe once Trump implements Big Brother policies and there's cameras everywhere, then we'll be good to go.
Yeah.
Because I agree with you, though. Most companies wouldn't be able to afford something like that, and if they did, they can't keep it. They can't keep the record. So if it's something that's been ongoing and you decided to come up weeks or months later, then it's too late. They don't have anything.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be great if they could. It's just, I don't know if it would be possible. But I mean, it'd be great if they could record everything, because then I've actually asked my employees that. I said, hey, if we put cameras over each of your desks, how would you feel about it? Well, all of them say no, like, we'd hate it. We don't want that. But I said, do you have a legitimate reason why, other than you don't want me to know what you're doing most of the time? And they're like, well, no, like it's because we're on Snapchat, and we're playing on Facebook. We don't want you to know.
Yeah.
Like, the only reason you don't want to be supervised and surveillanced is because you don't want to get seen that you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. So the innocent have nothing to fear type of thing.
Right.
Well, is there anything anybody else would like to add? Or just want to hear from Michio, what's the most important thing you guys learned from this case?
There's no right answer.
There's gray area.
And it's hard. I mean, you look at, he reported it trying to do the right thing. Well, her husband beats her up and then forces her to quit. Like, granted, she chose her husband. That's the guy she picked. That's kind of a whatever. You know, you try to do the best you can. And I don't think, like, I'd sleep at night, like, hoping I did the best. You can't stop every bad thing from ever happening. When you have a choice, you have to make what you feel is the best option.
Yeah, I think with that scenario, there really wasn't a right decision. It was a no-win either way.
But it went pretty bad. That's the thing. It went really bad. And
Yeah, that surprised me. The outcome of that really surprised me.
mhm.
Yeah.
And just from this reading, I mean, it's like I wonder about, other cases that have happened, and I mean, I'm sure even some are even worse than this. And so it's like, I don't know, that'd be a tough situation.
Yeah, it almost makes you mad that the guy got away with it,
Yeah.
and the lady gets beat up by her husband.
Mm-hmm.
But the sad thing is that's probably the majority of the cases. That's kind of how they happen. We don't
Yep.
have proof.
Yeah.
It's just unfortunate.
Yeah. So, awesome. Well, how would you guys rate the overall quality of today's discussion from 0 to 10?
10.
Yeah, it was a good one.
Easily a 10.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. And so as me being your discussion leader, what could I do better for next time?
Nothing. I think we're good to go.
You could start the recording of the hangout.
Do what?
You could actually start the recording of the hangout.
Yeah. Well, now I know how, so that's awesome.
All right.
Okay. Well, appreciate you guys all meeting tonight, and look forward to hear about you guys from next week. Oh, did you guys? You can take it off recording now if you want, or whatever. But